Good evening, all. Good evening, Biju sir.
Good evening, sir.
Miss Sarita, Miss Khyati.
Good evening, sir.
Good
Good
evening,
evening.
sir.
How are you, Khyati, ma'am?
Much better, and I hope I am audible right now.
Yes, pretty audible. And Sarita, ma'am, all set?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. I'm sorry. Yes, we are all set.
Yes. Biju sir, over to you. Thank you.
Ms. Sarita Warrior holds a master's degree in economics from the prestigious Fergusson College, Pune. She has done her B.Ed in English and Economics and is currently working with Nalanda Public School, Mumbai, where she teaches English, Economics and Financial Markets Management. She is an avid reader and a published author. She has rendered her services as moderator for multiple occasions and is the chief editor of Transformers e-magazine. Hearty welcome, Ms. Sarita Warrior. The stage is yours. Please proceed.
Thank you, Biju sir, for that wonderful introduction. So, a very good evening, everyone, and warm greetings from all of us here at Extra Mile Education and Training on the eve of India's 78th Independence Day. Extra Mile is a prolific training platform by the founder of BTAG, Dr. Abdul Salam. It aims to empower the educators fraternity across the country by providing online as well as on-site training on demand. With its ever-expanding pool of resource persons and subject experts, Extra Mile reaches across to educators all over India as well as the Gulf countries as we go about on our mission to bring about educational excellence. I extend a warm welcome to our program director, Dr. Abdul Salam, our respected resource person for the day, Ms. Khyati Dwarkadas, respected program co-director, Mr. Biju S. Pillai, and all our dear participants who have joined us this evening. It is indeed a pleasure to have each one of you as an integral part of this session as we go about learning more about preparing quality multiple choice questions or MCQs in our assessments. It is a great feeling to be present here today, and I extend my humble gratitude to Dr. Abdul Salam for giving me this wonderful opportunity. Coming to the topic for today, why do we need to prepare quality MCQs? MCQs allow for assessment of a wide range of learning objectives. They are objective in nature, thus they limit scoring bias. They are efficient to administer and score. Students can quickly respond to many items, permitting wide sampling and coverage of content. Over the past few years, the CBSE has issued guidelines on how to prepare and administer effective multiple choice questions in teachers' assessments. MCQs need to be prepared in a way that they achieve the ultimate aim of assessment and test various competencies in students. In today's session, our resource person, Ms. Khyati, will guide us through the ways and means in which we can go about preparing efficient MCQs so that teachers can help students achieve the learning outcomes. Before we begin with today's session, there are a few things I'll quickly remind you about. Switching on your device cameras is optional. However, any query in the midst of the session can be conveyed through the meeting chat box. In order to have an interactive experience, you may note down your queries and ask them at the end of the session. Khyati ma'am will be happy to dispel your doubts. Please click the raise hand button and wait for your name to be called out for asking your query. The participants will have the opportunity to receive certificate only after filling up the certificate and feedback form. The link for the same will be shared.
Some technical issue. Biju sir, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can hear you.
Yeah, I think she has some technical issues. Let me check.
Sir, you can proceed, sir.
Yeah, 1 minute, 1 minute. Well, participants, thank you for joining. This particular session is offered because the topic is very important and many guidelines to be followed in preparing the MCQs. And you must be knowing that CBSE has increased the percentage of MCQs for this academic year. So there is a relevance of this particular session. And when the moment you see MCQs and students, there is an apprehension among students to score less in MCQs because they are very much confused with the answers. Sometimes the answers look alike. But that is what is, the education department is looking for. Students should be able to think and solve the problems. They cannot, have a guesswork and they cannot have rote learning and mug it up. So I'm very much thankful. So on behalf of all the educators, I take this opportunity to extend a warm greeting and appreciation to Ms. Kyadi for offering this session. We have done this session one time, but now that the relevance is increasing, so I requested Kyadi ma'am to offer this session again, so that all educators will be getting what do you call a complete, comprehensive idea of how to make MCQs. So Biju sir,
Yes, sir.
I request Biju sir to felicitate this session. And
Thank you, sir.
yeah, Sarida ma'am has joined. You can start, sir, Biju sir.
Thank you, sir.
Are we
Good
starting
evening, all.
again? Are we starting again?
No, ma'am, we are continuing with the.
We are continuing. Biju sir,
Yes.
over to Biju sir.
Yes,
Okay,
thank
okay.
you. Thank you. I'm so sorry.
No issue. Good evening, all. Advance independence greeting to all the educators in this platform, and a wonderful evening. As our director has told, MCQ has got a major role to play, both for the people who are focusing on seldom also, and also for the poor educators also. And sorry, less acquiring children, those who are having less marks. For both these people, MCQ has got a major role. So how to frame the MCQ and how to make the children coming to the or focusing to the correct answer, as some MCQs will be similar and it will be getting confused. So how to come to the correct point, it's a very important thing to be noted. So here we have Khyati Dwaragadas today, who is an eminent personality and will guide us today evening with all her important knowledge, and we all will be gaining this evening with all informations, so that all teachers, while they are guiding their children towards their board examination, they will be getting more important and they will be more focused towards gaining more and more marks towards the MCQ, so that the people who are aiming towards seldom, they can easily come to their goals. And equally are the poor learners also, where they are coming to the average or nearing to the 50s. MCQ has got a major role. So let us listen to the great words of Kathy ma'am. Thank you, Sarida ma'am. Back to you.
Thank you, Biju sir. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm extremely sorry for the technical snag at my end. I'm so sorry about it. We shall now proceed to the highlight of today's webinar. Amidst us today, we have Ms. Khyati Dwarkadas, who is one of our most prolific resource persons. And ma'am, it's a privilege for all of us here at Extra Mile to have you with us on board. Ms. Khyati Dwarkadas is a veteran educator with more than 25 years of experience. She's currently serving as head of department at Gopi Birla Memorial School, Mumbai. Ms. Khyati has been recognized as an innovation ambassador by the Ministry of Education. Awards and honors, including the Lifetime Achievement Award and Innovative Head of Department Award from Education World, the Sushma Swaraj Women Icon Award for Women Empowerment, and the Acharya Chanakya Shikshavid Samman. Ms. Khyati is not just an educator, but a visionary leader, a catalyst for change, and a beacon of excellence in education. Khyati ma'am, on behalf of everyone present here, I extend you a warm welcome and request you to please take over. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Sarita ma'am. That was indeed a very humbling introduction. Good evening to one and all present here, particularly to Dr. Salam Biju sir, and to all the wonderful educators who've joined us on the eve of the 78th Independence Day. Wishing you all in advance a very happy Independence Day. Today, like we've heard Dr. Salam, Biju sir, and Sarita ma'am scare us about making MCQs and framing them, our topic is not to scare either the educators or the students. We are here to help the educators frame the correct kind of MCQs so that the students are not confused and students have no inclination to make a mistake. So if we make the correct kind of MCQs, our students will never go wrong. So let us start with the making of good MCQs. Let me just share my screen. Yes. Okay. And I hope you are now able to see the screen.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Great. I will just make it full screen. Just a minute. All right. So we are going to learn easy ways. Let me tell you, making easy ways or making MCQs, learning to write MCQs in an easy way is possible, but there is no shortcut to hard work. That should be our bottom line, our tagline. Educators, I would request you to sit with a notepad and a pen or keep some note-making material or a co-pilot or an AI assistant handy, just in case you need to take down something important and you need to keep it in memory for a longer period of time. And of course, like each time, I will give you scope to interact. So man had choices to make, and we've always learned this. English teachers have taught me that there's a poem in English by Robert Frost, The Road Not Taken. And there is a choice to be made here between conformity and individuality. So right from English to, if you move ahead, there is also a poem by Nikki Giovanni, which is Choices, which reflects the choices people make in life and whether we are making thoughtful, mindful choices and how our decisions are shaped. What impact does the choice we make have on our life and the people around us? So there are a lot of choices that we have to make in life. And similarly, students also have to take these important choices in their stead. In grade 11 history, we've seen this, where early man who had nothing else and no modern facilities like the ones we have right now, had to make choices. He had to live, and to survive, he had many options. And he had to make the right choice for his survival. He was foraging for food, for survival. He was learning climate change, everything. He had to make the right choice. Even if you notice a simple Hindu sanskar of marriage, the girl has to make the right choice in her life. And we learn it through the process called Swayamvar, where the girl chooses her own husband. So mythology has taught us, Hindu mythology, that the girl had the option of choosing her own husband. And of course, today also there is this little practice of choosing their own husband, even in an arranged marriage. The ritual continues. However, this formal process of MCQ, a very scientific way, was started early by Thorndike, and later his student, his assistant, Benjamin Wood, developed the actual MCQ. And Benjamin Wood brought up this circling the correct answer kind of MCQ. Till then, we were not having such kind of tests. So you can see those 1, 2, 3, 4 numbers. These days, we also have the ABCD in those OMR sheets. And the student has to circle it correctly on OMR sheets in professional exams, competitive exams. And CBSE, of course, gives them the option of writing the correct answer. The first MCQ for computers was started on a Sharp MZ80 computer in 1982 by Christopher Soule. And it was developed to aid people with CWSN, particularly cope with agricultural subjects, because Latin plant names were difficult to understand and write. The first complete exam in an MCQ format was developed at St. Edward's School in Romsey, England. That's how it looks like. So making the best MCQs, or items as we call them, is an art as well as a science. It's an art because it takes a lot of practice to master. You can't be a master of MCQs overnight. There are general guidelines which we need to follow, we need to keep in mind, but there is no formula to guarantee a good item unless it meets the learning objectives. It's a science because it has to stimulate thinking, it inspires learning, it helps in self-reflection, it informs teaching. There are a set of sound principles and techniques which must be followed in framing of an MCQ, and students must have the knowledge of the content which is being tested to avoid wild guesswork and to be able to pinpoint the exact correct answer. So why do we need to assess? That's the most important question. To diagnose the level of proficiency in learning, identify the gaps in learning, and identifying appropriate approaches to remediate learning. So you have a diagnosis, you have a remediation, and you have an assessment. There are 3 things which we are taking into consideration. And assessment is for learning. It is no longer of learning. Please keep this in mind. So whenever we frame a question, the role of questions is to meet these key objectives of assessment. It is not for us to, just ask any random question. Now, all of us know this person, Benjamin Bloom. And he is this one gentleman whom all educators across the globe walk and talk with. You make lesson plans, with the Bloom's taxonomy. We make learning outcomes with the Bloom's taxonomy. We make questions with the Bloom's taxonomy. We design our activities using the Bloom's wheel. So we are walking and talking Bloom's taxonomy, which was created initially by Benjamin Bloom. And he also was such a good teacher that his students, Crothall and Anderson, later around 2000 or so, modified the Bloom's taxonomy and gave us the current Bloom's taxonomy of the cognitive domain. So we have the Bloom's taxonomy of the hand, the head, and the heart. The head being the cognitive domain, where you have 6 domain levels. The affective or the heart, which has attitudinal based 5 levels, and the psychomotor, which is the hand, 6 domains, skill based. You can see here all the Bloom's taxonomy of the hand, the head, and the heart, where right from recalling data to understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating the current Bloom's taxonomy. We also have a receive, respond, or react, value, organize personal value systems, internalize the value systems, to imitation, manipulation, develop precision. Look at the skills, articulation, naturalization. So are we trying to prepare our learners for that one day when they will have imbibed the entire Bloom's taxonomy that we are following day in and out? So always remember, Bloom's taxonomy moves from the lower order, which is remembering, to the higher order, which is creating. The lower order will always be teacher-led, because the teacher will say what, when, where, how, why, or when does India celebrate Independence Day, and the student will immediately recall 15th August. Even if you give 4 options, 15th August, 26th Jan, maybe you would then say 14th August, and you would also put in any other 11 December or any other important day that you feel, 26 November, any other day you feel like. And the student will immediately tell you 15th August. He doesn't have to choose, it is from memory. NEP and NCF focus on Smriti. So it's from memory that you can answer a remember or a recall. Sometimes understand would also be a teacher-led question, where the student has to understand the process behind a particular thing and go ahead in choosing the correct answer. The minute a student starts applying the knowledge, it becomes a student-centered MCQ, which is the focus of NEP. Apply becomes your middle order. Analyze, evaluate, and create are the higher order. So from the lots to the mots to the hots, lower order thinking skills, middle order thinking skills to the higher order thinking skills, teachers and students both have to use their knowledge. This particular chart of the Bloom's taxonomy is a good ready reckoner, which you may choose to use when framing questions. The CBSE mandates from this year, 50% questions will be competency based. So 50% will now still be divided into the lower order and the middle order, but the 50% will definitely be higher order. Before you start asking a question, or framing a question, we have to keep 2 things in mind. Is this topic worth evaluating? And does it test higher cognitive function or just recall? What is it that you are doing with the topic? Now, questioning skills must test learning outcomes. They should be learning tools. Questions should be posed effectively. Good questions are purposeful, clear, briefly stated. Don't beat around the bush in the question that the child forgets. The learner, the test taker, should never forget what is intended to ask by reading a question. You know, as teachers, we feel if we put in too many words and sentences in the question stem or the main sentence, the student will get confused. So refrain from doing that. We are not going to confuse the student by doing that. We are just going to demotivate the test taker. So then there is natural stated simply in conversational English. Now, if you've taught about horses, don't question fillies. Ask their question on horses. The question should be thought-provoking. All the 4 options you give should be possible. There should be very close alternatives. A lower scoring test taker should really be sitting and thinking whether each of the options can be the correct answer. But the higher scoring test taker or the better prepared test taker, because in an MCQ, the scores vary depending on the preparation of the test taker. So a better prepared test taker is definitely going to be able to pinpoint the correct answer. Limit your questioning scope. Take only 1 point or 2 points in the question and tailor make the question to your class level. Don't worry. We have multiple diagnostic assessments, which we call formative assessments. We call periodic assessments in our school systems. So make use of these assessments for multiple questions, and you will be able to do justice to what we are currently talking about. So this is one of my favorite comics. The teacher says, I taught Stripe how to whistle, but nobody has heard him whistling. The teacher says, I taught him. I did not say he learned it. Now here, this is very clearly an indication of a teacher-led learning outcome. It is also a very clear indication that the teacher has only taught and gone, has not bothered about the outcome. Instead, the learning outcome should have been at the end of this unit or at the end of today's session, Stripe will demonstrate how to whistle, which means the learning outcome, the learning objective is very clearly student focused. The student will automatically focus on learning to whistle, not be distracted in class, because the student knows he has to demonstrate how to whistle. Simple learning outcome. Another way of putting it would be, maybe if you have a bright class, learners are bright. At the end of today's lesson, Stripe will put this tune to a new tune in the whistle. So Stripe has learned one tune, he has demonstrated it, and now he will set a new tune by blowing the whistle. That's creating, that's the highest order of the Bloom's taxonomy. So there are many ways in which you can use this. There are many ways in which your questions, which may be simple, which may be very, very easy, can also be taken to the higher order. Now, item and item writing. MCQs are not questions, they are multiple choice items. The task and or questions that are used to construct tests and examinations are referred to as items. And a range of techniques we use in preparing these items are collectively referred to as item writing. Always keep in mind, we do not just use simple option MCQs. We don't just give fill in the blanks. We give match the following, we give true or false, we give complete the statement, identify the odd one out, we give a passage, we give multiple choice. So there are 4 options given in a question, and the answer will have another 4 options. There are so many, there are sequence based, set chronologically. There are so many things that we have to ask. Assertion and reasoning, picture questions, passage questions, inference questions. We have a limit of a number, maybe 20 or 21 or 22. And by then we have to ask every range, every technique in one exam. So the steps to the best item writing: focus on the contents to be assessed. Decide on what knowledge or proficiency or cognitive process do you want the student to demonstrate. So this is like I told you, what do you want Stripe to do at the end of the lesson? Focus on that. And before you start framing the question, what should the student know about the topic you are testing? What are the learning outcomes? And what should the student be able to do? Keep this in mind as an educator. Never ask what the student will not know. And how will you know what the student will not know? Always test learning outcomes. As a teacher, we would always have taught learning outcomes. The minute you test the learning outcomes, you already know what the student should know. And the skill, what the student shall be able to do at the end of this question. So obviously, I will show you the features of MCQ. It asks a question, establishes a situation for a response. It allows valid, reliable, economic measurement of a wide range of content in a short testing time. Provides for 4 response choices, from which only one answer should be correct and not ambiguous. And here we have a STEM. The Constitution of India was implemented in the year. And now that's the STEM statement, or the statement of question. It is mandatory or suggestive that we ask 4 options. The probability of getting an incorrect answer is higher when the options are 4. If you give 2, the guess is between only yes and no. Like playing KBC, 50-50, it clears the 2 incorrect options. When you have 4, the child should be very thorough on content. So the Constitution of India was implemented in the year. We have 4 very important years of Indian history: 1947, 48, 50, and 52. Now look at the placement of the 4 years. They are in chronological order. Keep that in mind. Options should also always be in alphabetic order, chronological order. We should not give a clue to the correct answer. 3 incorrect options are called distractors. The correct answer is called the key. The stem should be clearly worded, written in direct question form, or an incomplete statement. So, like this question, the Constitution of India was implemented in the year. I have made it a clear sentence form. If you were to make it into an incomplete statement, the Constitution of India was implemented in dash year, and the options would still remain the same. Remember to keep the dash or the blank towards the end of the statement so that the test taker remembers to fill in the blank. Normally we say dash is the year in which the Constitution of India was implemented. So by the time the test taker has read the statement, they have forgotten the blank, they would have to go back and revisit the stem, which would be time consuming and it puts them off. So the question should be very, very clearly worded. Contain only one concept. We want the year of the implementation of the Constitution. Include as much of the item as possible, should be free of irrelevant material. So one could, as a teacher, feel that we should write a brief on the Constitution framing and maybe the dates, important dates of the Constitution in the passage should be there. We should give a little passage and the child should be able to choose from there, but it puts the test taker off. So refrain from such things. Use a negatively stated stem only when significant learning outcomes require it. And always highlight the negative in the stem so the student knows that it's the negative one which is focused on. So for example, in this question, if I would have said, I would have given four options here, and I would have said, the Constitution of India was not implemented in which of the following years, or which of the following years had nothing to do with the Constitution framing, with the framing of the Constitution. And I would have put in 4 years of the Constitution or one odd one. And the child would then have to pick the odd one. So I would have to highlight the negative statement in such a situation. Stress the negative word used in the stem, make it bold or underline it so the test taker knows what to do. Use plausible distractors. All 4 options should be very close. They should be almost the correct answer, but only one answer should be correct. And good MCQs require the educator to justify why only that particular answer is correct and not another one. Make sure there is only one correct answer. Make all the options grammatically consistent and parallel in form. Many a times we have this habit, it's a very bad habit that we have. We don't use, not all of us are very good in English. And we don't take help of AI. We don't take help of MS Office. We don't use the spell check and the grammar check. And we make any random questions and submit. Now, when we see the questions in the paper, what happens is the questions asked are incorrect. The STEM statements are incorrect. And then the options may or may not match what is asked. So automatically there would be a confusion, ambiguity in the question and the options. Secondly, sometimes it so happens that out of, a teacher's nature, it's very much in the teacher nature that we create unnecessarily long statements. And the longest statement is always the correct answer to an MCQ. It's within us. Therefore, all the options should be more or less of the same length, preferably, and grammatically correct. The correct answers should not always appear in the same position. If you go back and check your MCQ papers, you will see that most of the answers are either B or C, or they follow the ABCD pattern or the BDCA pattern. It's a pattern that we teachers normally follow because it makes it easy to correct when we are evaluating. Even students know that. And they will guess. The unprepared test taker will put a wild guess on the B option. And you will always see that the B option goes incorrect in many cases because a prepared teacher, a well-trained teacher, will always change the position of the right answer. Vary the length of the key to avoid giving clues. So don't give clues, make the key of the same length as the other distractors. Place the position of the correct answer in random order. Avoid the use of all of the above and none of the above, or both A and B. These three options are lazy distractors. Teacher had to make 20 MCQs. The teacher did not know the fourth option, what to give, so all of the above, none of the above, both A and B. These are lazy distractors. Never use them. There should be no ambiguity in the interpretation of the question. And many a times, the board recommends that we use picture questions. But what is the necessity of using a picture in an MCQ? Can a student answer the MCQ without the picture? If yes, don't ask the picture. If the picture is needed to understand some concept of the MCQ, something in question, always keep the picture. I'll show you some of the examples today and you will get a very clear and vivid idea of what we are trying to talk. The possible types that we have: simple MCQs with 4 options, complex, we give 4 options and another 4. Which of those 4 options are the correct ones? Assertion reasoning. Which word defines this picture the most? So I'll keep the chat open in case anyone wishes to answer. Which word defines this picture the best? And I can see a lot of people writing oasis. Kudos to you. This is an oasis in our desert. Wonderful. I'm sure Extra Mile is training its educators brilliantly. First shot, correct answers. Let's clap for you. Now, when you do the theory of knowledge and when you read the NCF for school education, you come to know about certain places from where knowledge is gained in Indian philosophy. And one such place is Arthapatti. And Arthapatti is a very good example to create assertion and reasoning questions. So look at this. Raj loves to eat food. Raj does not eat during the day. Look at the first 2 statements. Raj loves to eat food. So Raj is a foodie. But he does not eat during the day. When does Raj eat? In the night. Raj eats at night. That we are concluding, we are inferring. Assertion and reasoning questions are also created this way. Raj loves to eat food, or Raj does not eat during the day, but Raj eats at night. You've given the second and the third statement. And the 4 options are A and R are true, and R is the correct explanation of A. R is not the correct explanation of A. A is true, R is false. R is true, A is false. So when you see the 2 sentences, you already know that Raj does not eat during the day, so he eats at night. R is the correct explanation of A. So this form of Indian knowledge is very useful in creating assertion reasoning questions, inference-based questions, short passage-based questions. CBSE has also given us 10 basic guidelines for creating MCQs. And we are going to look at each of them in detail. Before we go to them, you need to know the role of good questions in an assessment. They can influence how students learn and stimulate thinking. Good questions can distinguish mechanical learning from learning with understanding. Good questions can diagnose misconceptions and common errors. So look at the very first one. Ram has 3 solid balls, all of equal weight. The size of the 3 balls are as shown below. You can see the 3 size balls there in the image. All of it is the stem. The question is still continuing in the stem. If ball 2 sinks in water, which of the other ball will definitely sink in water? And you can see only ball 1, ball 3, both 1 and 3 cannot be sure. Look at the distractors and look at the correct answer, only ball 1. Maybe science teachers have a solution to why it is only ball 1. Decide the learning outcomes to be tested, eliminate ambiguity, create distractors firmly on what you want to test, keeping in mind the uniformity in the form and length. Make sure that wrong answers can be explained justifiably. Be prepared to give feedback for the correct answer, explaining why it is the correct answer. So the first concept that CBSE has given us, test the understanding of concepts, not just a recall of facts. So in grade 6 and 9, the NCERT has these concepts on the Earth's rotation, revolution, day, night, time, the time lapse, the time gap, the time sums, latitude, longitude. The time and date in India in the picture shown is likely to be close to dash. And you have the 4 options. Look at the 4 options. There is a 6 a.m. followed by a 6 p.m. in both the months November and May. And all the dates are 10th, whether it is November or May. Now the child has to really be thorough with his or her knowledge to be able to choose the correct answer. So the question requires the student to use the knowledge of the fact that the sun rises in the east. So the time lapse, they should have understood the different months, the tilt of the earth, the tilt in November, the tilt in May, the rays of the sun, direct and indirect rays of the sun. Look at the number of concepts a child has to use in answering such a simple question. They need to understand in the given context whether it is this picture would have been taken at day or at night. That also the child has to understand because they have to verify whether it is AM or PM. The child has to know so much before choosing the correct answer. Look at this. In class 12, you will see good questions and bad questions, both are there. However, we don't consider bad questions. We say good and better questions. One is a passage like a poem, which is a Veera Shaiva Vachan. And based on that, you simply say which of the following teaching is reflected from the above Vachan. So you read the poem, you read the Vachan, and you choose the teaching. The second is a passage of the Veera Shaiva tradition. And the student is expected to know the Veera Shaiva tradition, its practices. Which of the following statements concerning this practice is true? So the student is expected to know the Veera Shaiva tradition in depth to be able to choose one correct answer out of the 4 options given, where 3 are incorrect statements. Test core learning objectives, not a mere recall of fact. So where was Minamata disease first seen? And you have 4 countries. That is just asking a recall. But if you had to test core learning objectives, for diseases caused by bacteria, certain antibiotics are prescribed. Antibiotics are medicines that, what do antibiotics do? We so merrily gulp antibiotics. We live on antibiotics. But what is the role of antibiotics? Does the child know that? So while question 2 was only testing recall, question 3 was testing the student's ability to apply the role of antibiotics. Use unfamiliar context to identify real learning. So there is a very textbookish question. Gravitational pull of the moon is dash of the earth, half, 1/3, 1/4, 1/6. Very textbook. Total bookish content. And the unfamiliar context is if you're standing on the moon holding a pen and you let it go, it will dash. What will happen to the pen? Geography question, needing the child to use science because you're standing on the moon with a pen. Does moon have gravity? What will happen? Will the pen come down? Will it fly? Will it float? What will happen? So most textbooks tell us that the gravity of the moon is 1/6 of the Earth's. So that would make it a bookish question. But uncovering the fact behind learning the gravitational pull, behind learning the moon, beyond learning what happens, the student will start thinking. Like I told you earlier, questions should stimulate thinking. Questions involving multiple concepts instead of the intended one. Just test what is to be tested, right? Now, Hema cut a ribbon of length 0.1 meters into 10 equal pieces. How long will each piece be? Now, look at the first sample there. One option is 1 meter, one is centimeter, another is meter, another is centimeter. Oh. Now, for a student who is not mathematically inclined, will not be able to divide meter and centimeter and will just do any random eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Instead, the teacher could have been simpler in saying all 4 options in meters. And the child is then able to select the correct option. That is where we are heading to. So you look at this from checking on whatever was there earlier, meter, centimeter, 10 meters, 10 centimeters, the teacher has made it simple to test core competencies, to intend to test the learning outcome. Has the child learned? Frame the questions unambiguously and technically correct. Now look at this. This is also one of my favorite questions. There's no correct answer in this question. There's a full timeline given, okay? Which of these inventions was made more than 70 years after that of the bicycle, but before 50 years before the space shuttle? So when you look at the bicycle, it's 1859. Now, if the student puts in all his mathematics after 70 years, 50 and 70 would be something around 1920. But the space shuttle was in 1981. So 50 years before that, you could probably choose between the aeroplane and the rocket, but there is no certain answer. Because in the date there, nothing matches. Or it could even be the helicopter. The 3 options could be possible and there is no definite answer. It's too much ambiguity. Sample question 9 talks about incorrect framing the STEM. Now look at this. There is a car shown here with labeled parts. This is everything about robotic cars given in the passage. Now, over here, there is no mention in particular of the rear view mirror, except that the camera beside the rear view mirror monitors the road marking. Okay. Here it is asking in the STEM, an advantage of the rear view mirror developed by Honda is, where is this diagram talking about the rear view mirror? It is talking about the camera next to the rear view mirror. The framing of the question is only incorrect. How can we blame the students? Have we shown the students that there is a rear view mirror here? What are its advantages? Nothing. Test specific learning concepts. Understand the concepts and misconceptions and student errors when you're framing the question. So, which of the following are examples of respiration? Humans use oxygen and release carbon dioxide. Plants use carbon dioxide and release oxygen. Burning dry leaves uses oxygen and releases carbon dioxide. Only one, only two, one and two, or all three. So the question tests if they can identify respiration. Students have a misconception that like humans use oxygen, plants use carbon dioxide. And option C is capturing the misconception. So are we testing this? Look at this. Use real life examples instead of contrived ones. So 5 grams camphor is taken in a tray and burnt. What is the weight of the product obtained? Is the child able to see 5 grams camphor in an examination hall? Do you think a student can visualize 5 grams of camphor in an exam hall? If you ask such a question, you will see the test takers perspiring. They get nervous. You will see hands sweat. You will see droplets. So that's not what we are here for. Give a good real life context example. Something that the children use daily in their life. Milk, curds. So 2 images of the same packet of curds taken at an interval of 2 days. The packet had been left undisturbed at room temperature on the kitchen shelf. We don't know which of the photographs was taken first and which was taken 2 days later. One is a puffed and swollen packet. One is a full packet of curd. Which of the 2 packets will weigh more? The curds is something that a student would normally be eating. They would have seen packets of curd almost on a daily basis. Most students even have those ready-made curds of the different dairies, the yogurts. They would have seen this. So when you look at sample question 12, it uses a simple yet popular context of curds puffing. It tests a concept of mass, conservation of mass within a closed system. The packet was not opened. Microbes used in the curds inside grow and multiply. Nothing would have entered or escaped the packet. The mass of both the packets would have remained the same. This allows the student to apply knowledge to real-time life situations. Use stimulus, make real-time questions, test higher order thinking. Use authentic text. So there is a passage here about an amateur scientist, and it's a long passage, so I will not be reading it out. You can look at it. But to cut a long story short, as we call it, there is a passage, there is a scientist, there are pencil marks that are being spoken about. Assuming that the theory proposed was correct, it is the Richard Feynman technique. What would have happened if the sugar was suddenly removed? And you have 4 options. Now for this, the student has to really read the Feynman technique, the passage, and then understand the concept and choose the correct answer. Use authentic data, graphs, maps, etc. So this is again a UN report. Always notice in an examination, the CBSE uses authentic data. They always give you the source from where the data has been received. Even in the NCERT textbook, below every box or interpretation passage, you will see source. It's either from the National Sample Survey or from the UN reports or from the World Health Organization. Always write that even in the exam paper. So here you can see countries that are given and the countries of asylum, country of origin and the country of asylum. And the ribbons match the origin and the asylum together. Based on this, majority of almost 10 million refugees found safety in dash country. So there is an infographic. The child reads the infographic and infers. Now look at this. In the infographic, we have given independent countries. But in the question, we are asking group countries. The child has to understand. It's an application of a concept. Work is simple. The teacher is still asking the same question. Initially, the teacher would have asked, from which country did a person get asylum in, or a person from the Syrian Arab Republic received asylum in which of the following countries? South Sudan, Pakistan, Turkey, or Lebanon. All right. Now the teacher is asking, almost 10 million refugees found asylum in which of the following? So the child goes back and checks where would the 10 million mark be? Where are these people migrating from and where are they getting asylum? Use authentic data, maps, graphs, and any other information. There are 4 pie charts. Which of these, which is composition of 100 grams of 4 different foods, carbohydrates, fats and oils, protein and water. Which food provides the most energy? For the science students, science test takers, answers would be easy. So the key takeaways, language should be appropriate. Like I told you earlier, if you've taught horses, don't test fillies, use horses. Otherwise, the student would not know in an exam hall what are fillies. In summary, main points to keep in mind, test understanding of concepts and not just a recall of facts. Test core learning, not peripheral facts. Use unfamiliar contexts to identify real learning. Test what is intended to be tested. Frame the questions without ambiguity in the correct way. Test specific alternate conceptions and misconceptions of student errors. Use real life context instead of contrived ones. Use authentic data, maps, graphs. Use age appropriate content as well as language. There are also case study questions. Now also look at this twisted building. There is a passage with a twisted building in diagram and 2 images. The following pictures are side views of this twisted building. From which direction has side view 1 been taken? And the second question is, from which direction has side view 2 been taken? And both this entire thing is from PISA mathematics. You can understand the level the child has to first understand the directions, the view, the building, the twists. There can be good questions. Good case should be based on real life context, taken from authentic source. Quote the actual source from where it has been taken. Make it engaging for students to spend time reading and understanding it. It should be a joyful learning experience, even in an exam hall. Use a combination of text, images, graphs, data interpretation. Have most questions answerable by going through the case and not an independent study. Have up to 5 questions depending on the length of the case. In language papers, passages may have more questions. Have 1 to 5 paragraphs of the text material that students are expected to read and answer related questions from. Be relevant to time and not out of date. So today we need real-time, real-life data. Don't ask outdated questions unless your learning outcomes require you to test something old. A good case should not be contrived. Should not use material that is biased in any gender, community, or in any other way. And the vocabulary should not be inappropriate. There are other case studies here. Picture is showing Eastern Himalayas, Arunachal Pradesh, and it's talking about the Aptani tribe. So how do the Aptanis manage to irrigate the valleys and hill terraces? So the student should have studied the tribes that they are learning in that particular context. What are the crops most likely to be cultivated in the fields shown above? So if you've read about Arunachal, you automatically know the physical features of the region. This can be used in grade 9, grade 10, anywhere. Grade 8, grade 6. So use information related to an engaging real-life context from an authentic source. Ensure that the case is relevant and frame questions that can be answered based on the given information. So there is one here. Consider the following statements on the Harappan civilization. What assertion statement concerning Harappan civilization is true? And this is only recall of data. So the student will immediately pick the correct answer. But when you go to testing students' ability to recall, there are 2 questions on the Constituent Assembly here. They can be used in grade 9, they can be used in grade 12. Political science can use it in multiple other places. So which of the following statements regarding the Constituent Assembly members is true? Or initially the Constituent Assembly had 389 members. Within 6 months, the number of members decreased to 300. What was the reason for change? So the student in this case would have had to study the Constituent Assembly in detail, would have had to understand why the members reduced to 300. What was the story behind this? Then we have examples from different subjects. So there's Dashanand Shabd ke liye sahi samas vigrah ka chayan kijiye. Hindi teachers love this. Then here we have another one for Hindi teachers. Which of the following lines from the poem is from the poem Madhushala by Harivansh Rai Bachchan? And you have these 4 options and answer D is the correct answer. Then there is a math question, from grade 10 probability. A fair 6-sided die is rolled once. What is the probability of rolling an even number? And you can see the correct option there. This is from English Language and Literature. Which of the following sentences demonstrates correct use of a semicolon? And you can see there are 4 options with the semicolon, and the correct answer is given at the bottom. There is another one here in history where intended difficulty level is well aligned. So there is Kabir ke Dohe, which students learn in grade 10 Hindi. And there is a Bhakti Sufi movement, which they learn in grade 12 history. So Kabir ke Dohe is given to you in English with a translation there. And from the above lines, one can conclude that Saint Kabir's ideas were primarily about dash. And they can put their knowledge of history here. Or you had the table to interpret the GDP of 2 countries and the GDP per capita. This is sourced from the World Bank. The stem and the options are very clear. Advantages and disadvantages. While a wide sampling of content is possible, it is difficult to create plausible alternative responses. It is a well-structured MCQ, but time consuming on the other side. Flexibility in difficulty level. All 6 levels of the Bloom's taxonomy can be used. But an unprepared test taker will start guessing. Reliable, efficient, and objective scoring. But diagnostic information is not available. Provides easy scores, easily understood data, measures narrow facets of performance. Now, there is a video I wish to show you. In case if you cannot hear the sound, do let me know. Then I will reshare the screen.
How to make a killer multiple choice test question by Academy of Learning Career College. This video will show you how to make one of the most common test question types, the multiple choice question. First, let's break down the parts of a multiple choice question. Check out this example. This is called the stem. It's the initial statement or question that requires a response. These are called alternatives. They are the different response options to the stem. One of the alternatives is the correct answer. It's the right response to the stem. While the rest are called distractors. They are incorrect responses to the stem and serve to throw off the unprepared test taker. Great, you may be wondering, but how do I make a killer multiple choice question? Here are 10 tips to use as guidelines. Number 1. Be sure to present a clear question or problem in the stem of your test item. You want to make certain that a test taker who knows the subject matter will be able to answer correctly. Number 2. Don't introduce new language. For example, if the course refers to horses as horses, but then the test question refers to stallions and fillies, which are types of horses, the test taker will be unfairly confused. Number 3. Whenever possible, avoid writing negative stated stems. For example, which of the following does not mean a male horse can be rephrased as which of the following means a female horse, and will generally result in test responses that better reflect what has been learned. Number 4. If you have many multiple choice questions in your test, vary the position of the correct answer. The easiest way to do this is to shuffle around the alternatives for each question after you've created the entire test. Number 5. Keep the alternatives a consistent length and format within the same test item. Generally, we have a tendency to make the correct answer longer, more detailed, and more complex than the other alternatives. Test takers pick up on this and tend to select those longer alternatives as a result. Number 6. All the alternatives in a test item should be plausible and mutually exclusive. Carefully chosen, credible-seeming alternatives will help you confirm that your learners have grasped the finer points of what you've taught. Number 7. Limit your use of the alternatives, none of the above, and all of the above. These are lazy alternatives and generally frustrate test takers needlessly. Number 8. Consider presenting a chart, a reading excerpt, or a short case, and writing a series of questions in which test takers have to interpret what you've presented in order to select the correct answers. These questions are more difficult to create and, unsurprisingly, can be the best kinds of multiple choice questions for assessing learners. Number 9. Proofread. When you are done creating your entire test, run through it, or better yet, have a trusted colleague take your test. It is easy to make small errors when we create a test, and it is also easy for those errors to totally undermine test questions. So, try to catch them before you accidentally frustrate your test takers. And lastly, number 10. Throughout your test creation process, remember that your goal is to find out how well your learners have achieved the objectives of the course. Your goal is not necessarily to write challenging questions or a hard test. A well-written test question is difficult for an unprepared test taker, and simple for a well-prepared test taker. And that's how you write a killer multiple choice test question.
With this, I would like to take this opportunity to thank Extra Mile Education and Training, Dr. Salam, Biju Pillai sir, and Sarita Warrior ma'am for today's session. And of course, all of you wonderful educators for being a part of this session and giving me the opportunity to present this topic. I hope this session was interesting, added value to your future tests, and of course, helped you create the right kind of questions. I'm open to comment, feedback, questions, and anything more that I can help you with. I shall just stop sharing my screen. Over to you, Dr. Salam and Sarita ma'am.
Thank you, Khyati ma'am. That was indeed an eye-opening session. The kind of details and the kind of thought that we need to put in while preparing the most efficient MCQs, you have just guided as the most appropriate way. Ma'am, I had a query when I was just going through this. One of the limitations of MCQs, I believe, is it's not possible actually to test the highest level of Bloom's taxonomy, that is creativity through multiple choice. Have I understood it?
It is possible, ma'am.
Can we get an example about this, ma'am?
Yes, you can, like I gave you in the session itself, we had Stripe learning to blow the whistle. So you can have an example. Which of the 4 tunes was created by Stripe when demonstrating how to whistle? And you have listed 4 tunes there.
Okay.
So the learning objective is basically creation of the demonstration of a new tune based on what the teacher has taught. And Stripe has demonstrated it.
Okay, I'll have to get more clarification. I'll get back. Participants, we are open to more questions. Any one of you would like to raise your hand and ask your questions? Khyati ma'am will be more than happy to answer. Anyone? If you click on the raise hand button, we'll be unmuting you and you can ask your query. I believe, ma'am, it was so clear and so well researched that our participants don't really have. Except for this one query, I'm more or less very, very clear about it. It was a fantastically presented session. And a lot of our myths and doubts have been clarified, ma'am, because multiple choice questions, as you said, it's not an easy process. It requires a lot of time in order to efficiently prepare. And many of us tend to make mistakes and we tend to take the easy way out. As you said, one of the things that struck a chord was in order to, we unconsciously tend to help the students. We want them to get the right answer and we try to give clues while preparing the options. So that's something which struck a chord. Participants. Sir, I don't see any participants raising the hand. Can we go ahead and conclude?
Yes, please.
Thank you. So as we come to the end of today's session, I would like to thank Ms. Khyati Dwarkadas once again for her gracious presence and an enriching experience that ma'am has shared with us today. Dear participants, kindly note that the link for certificate and feedback has already been posted. You are requested to fill up the form with all the necessary details. Thank you, Biju sir, for your gracious presence and kind words. Thank you to all the participants for your enthusiasm. I would like to express my gratitude to Dr. Abdul Salam once again for this wonderful opportunity. And over to you, Salam sir, for concluding the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarita ma'am. Thank you for the wonderful help. A big round of applause to Khyati ma'am. Ma'am, wonderful presentation. Thank you so much. We have been trying our best to give bits of information, which is the best through resource persons like Khyati ma'am. And educators, those who have joined, must have taken away a lot of things from today's session. What I would like to say is we should be the master of making questions. What the tendency is seen is they borrow questions from here and there, from guides or whatever. We also share materials, but we don't know how authentic those questions or materials are. But it is the discretion of every educator who has to choose, because the students' future is in their hands. they should not misguide the students with a wrong way of asking questions and training them. So it is everybody's responsibility to train the students in answering multiple choice questions in the very simplest way without any confusion. So if we know the techniques given by Kathy ma'am, definitely we'll be able to train the children, because the number of multiple MCQs are more now. The number is more now as prescribed by CBSE, and some time should be spent on training children how to answer. At the same time, we have to train ourselves how to make multiple choice questions based on these guidelines given by CBSE and Kyadi ma'am today. So thank you so much for your efforts to learn and grow ourselves as professionals and help the children in the best way possible. So thank you everybody. Thank you Kyadi ma'am once again, and thank you Sarita ma'am, Biju sir, everybody. Keep
Thank you, sir.
connected. We will come up again with lots of topics which are very much needed for the educators. We'll try our best to help the teachers and students in the best way possible. Kathy ma'am, thank you. Good night. Good night,
Good night.
Selvan. Good
Good
night,
night.
everybody.
Happy Independence Day to all.
Yeah, happy Independence Day to everybody. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Thanks.